Support for Destination Michigan is provided by the CMU Bookstore. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, maroon and gold memories, and an official outfitter of Adidas apparel at the Central Michigan University-owned and operated CMU Bookstore. Online shopping 7 days a week at cmubookstore.com. The CMU Bookstore, online at cmubookstore.com, on campus in the University Center, and game day locations at Kelly Short Stadium and the John G. Kohalby Events Center.
Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Ozanek and welcome to Destination Michigan, the series that takes you to every corner of the Great Lakes State in search of the sights, the sounds, and of course the people that define this Michigan experience. Let's go ahead and take a sneak peek at what we have coming up for you in this episode.
We bill this as one of the greatest canoe races on earth, and simply, that's what it is.
Top athletes from near and far plunge into the AuSable River and put their endurance to the test.
You feel this peace when you walk in.
In Benzonia, Gwen Frostic's legacy continues to inspire. Marvel at Michigan's beauty through the eyes of photographer Neil Weaver, and it's all hands on deck as we search for treasure under the Mackinac Bridge. All these stories are coming your way on this episode of Destination Michigan.
One of the summer's most enjoyable experiences is a relaxing canoe ride down the meandering AuSable River. But the paddlers that you're going to meet in our first story take a very novel and extreme approach to this favorite summertime tradition. Destination Michigan's Steve Smith is here to take us up to Grayling for an overnight adventure that you have to see to believe.
The AuSable River is one of Michigan's most beautiful destinations. Kayaking, canoeing, and fly fishing make this a mecca for many who seek out the peaceful nature of the river's serenity and tranquility. Except for the last weekend in July, when the AuSable River Canoe Marathon comes to town.
We bill this as one of the greatest canoe races on earth, and simply, that's what it is. The athletes who are here are the top marathon canoe racers from all across North America, and this year even beyond Australia and Belize. There are other long canoe races. There are not canoe races this long overnight where they keep up this kind of pace. It's the pace of this race that's really amazing.
I think this is one of the most unique events that Consumers Energy has ever sponsored, and one of the most unique events I've actually ever attended. I mean, we've got almost 10,000 people.
80 teams made it to the starting line for the 70th annual marathon. 14 to 19 hours of paddling await the racers, nearly 8 of those in pitch darkness. Overall, everyone's spent hundreds of hours training for this seemingly impossible task.
We've had over 200 hours in the boat. This week we broke 1,000 miles this year, what we've paddled so far. We've gone to New York, we went to Florida for spring training. I mean, we're on the river all the time.
It's become much more dedicated, strenuous, the amount of hours, over 100 and some hours in canoeing, 150, 200 hours some of us have coming into this race. Sometimes weight training, running, things like that.
So nervous, so excited, so ready to just start paddling. We're so full of emotions. This is the best event. I'm so excited to get to do it with my sister. I'm just excited to get in the boat and start paddling, do what we do.
I'm definitely more ready than ever. I feel strong, I feel ready. This night is gonna be awesome. And all I have to say is don't underestimate a trusted, because we're coming for them.
And what happens is these guys run with their canoes on their shoulders a half a mile at the start, and then they dump it into the AuSable River in a very narrow part, very narrow section of the river, and it is really an incredible sight.
So as the teams paddle into the night, it's time for their support crews to go to work. They're called feeders.
Our main job is to get food and water to the teams as they travel down the river. They're your life. If you miss a feed, your team will bonk and fall back from where they are. Their water that they drink will be a Gatorade type drink with electrolytes and potassium and some sugars in it, for some energy. And then the Perpetuum that they drink is more of a food supplement. It's got more calories, more of the food intake for them. Our teams don't eat any real food other than one bag of fruit about halfway through the race.
Somebody tips and loses their bottle, even though they say, we don't want to feed at this spot. We're like, no, we're going to be there. So if you lost it, we've got it. If you don't need it, go right on by. We're not offended.
Our main job is not to cheer them on, but is to get information from them and relay information back to them.
Let them know where the boat in front of them is or the boat behind them is, how far between them most of the time.
We try to feed at private spots or places where it's quiet so we can actually talk to them versus feeding at like the bridge where there's thousands of people.
And the bridges give you a good idea why the canoe marathon is called the toughest spectator sport in the world. Check out McMaster's Bridge shortly after midnight. And quickly the paddlers slip back into the solitude of the night, focusing on one of the marathon's biggest challenges. More than 5 hours into the race, the teams approach Mayo Dam for the first Consumers Energy hydroelectric dam portage of the race, and the first time the racers have been out of their canoes.
They've been sitting in this canoe now for hours paddling, and then they have to get out and they have to put it on their shoulders and actually run with it. And I think it's just amazing the kind of athleticism that you see in these canoe racers, that they can go on hour after hour all through the night and then have to go through these portages at the 6 hydro dams. I think it's just really remarkable.
You can't wait to stand up. Of course, you stand up and your legs are a little bit wobbly. That's the hardest one because you're sitting so long.
Pull the muscle back there.
It's a little tough, and if it's colder or whatever, you've been sitting in the boat for 6.5, 7 hours, whatever it is, to get out and make your feet now move, sometimes it's a little crippling in a sense, no matter how good a runner you are. You're cramped up, especially if you're sitting close up in the bow to balance the boat, trim the boat. That makes it a little harder.
And then they're swallowed up by the darkness again, in water that is wider and deeper, with 5 more dam portages looming in the distance, and a time where the racers put their tenacity to the test. Just before sunrise, the front teams approach Alcona Dam for the second portage of the race.
Teams competing against each other, trying to get in each other's head, testing each other. There's also teams out there very lonely on the river, trying to find their way, trying not to fall farther behind or be caught up on.
Just got to remind yourself you better be tough. No matter what happens, you got to figure out a way to get through it. And that's sometimes hard. And things can happen where no matter what, you can't make it. But a lot of times you have to overlook like, oh, I'm not going as fast as I want to go right now. That sometimes overtakes a person more than anything. And then they think of reasons why they can't finish.
After you do it a few times, you kind of get a feeling for where you have to go. And there's so many other boats out there, and a lot of them now run GPSs, so if you see them up ahead, you kind of know that's the right direction.
It's a head game more than anything. You have to be ready to paddle all night. Just be sure that you have your hydration ready, your food ready to go, and cross your fingers, hope for the best.
Team number 4 had built a sizable lead of more than 7 minutes over their nearest competitors. But in the pre-dawn hours, team number 2 sprinted hard, and now at 5 Channels Dam, the teams are side by side, and the race continues at sprint speed over 4 more dams. After more than 14 hours battling on the river, the 2 teams paddle at nearly 90 strokes per minute, with team number 2 scoring a spectacular come-from-behind victory by a 1-second margin.
We're so light and we have a good cruise, and this race is all about the cruise. If you stop and you just see the negative, you'll be done and you won't have a good race. We always stay positive. We got dumped, we almost flipped, we lost the GPS. Everything, the worst could happen, it happened, but we always stay positive and we just never let go.
So don't take our word for it. Mark your calendar for the last weekend in July and experience the thrill of being a part of one of the greatest canoe marathons on Earth. You're guaranteed to feel the electricity in the air.
They're going to get a real charge out of it, the right kind of charge. Yeah, it's really a fantastic event, and I think if people came here and they saw it, they could pick up on the excitement, the enthusiasm, and what a special event this really is.
Folks who haven't come to see this ever ought to come at least once and get a taste of it. Folks connected with the marathon says it gets in your blood, and for most folks that's true.
And in case you were wondering, it took the winning team just a little more than 14 hours non-stop paddling to cover the 120 river miles of the race. And for our next story, we head to the town of Benzonia. Northern Michigan has long served as an inspiration for world-renowned artists, including Michigan's very own Gwen Frostic, a woman whose entrepreneurial spirit still echoes through the landscape today. So Stephanie Mills is here to show us how Gwen persevered despite having all the odds stacked against her.
Gwen Frostic had a deep passion for Northern Michigan, and it is evident in her designs, her prints, and her poetry. In 1978, Governor Milliken declared May 23rd as Gwen Frostic Day across the state. She was also inducted into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. Her life and legacy live on here at Gwen Frostic Prints near Benzonia.
You feel this peace when you walk in, and looking at all her nature cards and reading her poems, it's very delightful.
Delightful, peaceful, beautiful. If you've ever visited Gwen Frostic Prints, you've likely experienced these feelings while learning about her pioneering ways. Gwen was born in Sandusky in 1906. When she was about 2 years old, she suffered from an illness that left her somewhat crippled, but certainly never held her back from anything. She was a passionate artist and eventually opened her first shop downtown Frankfort before settling just outside Benzonia.
She found this spot out here. She bought 250 acres and built this beautiful, unique building. No drawings, no engineering, or no architect, nothing. She had it all in her head. If you look, the beams are off-center. She didn't want nothing centered. She wanted it to be very artistic. She lived here. This was her baby. She lived it, she loved it.
This 23,000 square foot building, affectionately known as the Hobbit House, became Gwen's oasis. Massive stones and boulders surround it, including the entrance. The roof is made of grass. There's nothing quite like it. The property served as the perfect backdrop for her prints and designs.
When all the property was here, you'll see little huts and little houses out on the trails. So she could sit out there and just for hours and hours and sketch. And she would go out with her sketch pad and just sketch and then come in. When she carved a linoleum block as she got older, she would put big lights with 100-watt light bulbs, and it would soften the linoleum so her hands could carve easier. So she would come back with her sketches and then she would start her carvings.
Gwen sketched her surroundings, then she would carve what she had sketched on blocks backwards for the printing press. Her incredible attention to detail to bring a scene to life is awe-inspiring, especially for a woman who once struggled to walk, draw, and write. At the print shop alone, they have almost 2,500 blocks. Today, the printing presses are run by Bill Frostic, Gwen's nephew. He's been here for more than 50 years.
All the presses are letter presses, which means that we're printing directly on the paper from the block we're using. So each press picks up each sheet individually with an air suction, and there's a gripper that grabs a hold of the sheet of paper and swings it around, and then it's pressed against the block, and that does the actual printing. She was a hard worker. She was old school. She wanted work done, and you got paid for the work you did. And she wanted it done right. This was her whole life, the press, operations, and the shop, and she did 21 books altogether. And so she was constantly writing and drawing and cutting all the linoleum blocks.
The printing process is very labor intensive. Depending on the amount of colors, it could take several days to print one card. Back in the day, each one of her presses were running. Computers have changed the process a bit, but people still love watching the process the old school way. Today, owner Kim is doing what she can to keep Gwen's legacy alive.
I think she has a lot of different avenues to a legacy. I think she has a great legacy for women, for business in general. She was a very brilliant businesswoman. What she did to inspire younger people that they can do anything they want if they set their minds to it. And she's a living example of that. Her calendars, we print thousands and thousands of them. What I found, even with her cards, they're so uniquely simple. I find her stuff just to be very unique, and the way she was able to capture the beauty and the simplicity.
Using her own sense of style, wit, and creativity, Gwen forged an extraordinary path all her own. Now she's leaving her mark on future generations.
Of course, everybody loves to watch the presses run. That's just fascinating, even for the children. A lot of people like to come and talk. They want to learn about Gwen. Little kids love to throw. We give pennies and they throw in the fish pond because they think it's so cool that there's actually a pond inside. We find about 80 to 90% of people that come here have an emotional attachment to this place. Whether it's my grandmother brought me here and now she's no longer here. Everybody has an emotional attachment in one way or another. So we just love people to come and enjoy.
Gwen Frostic passed away one day before her 95th birthday. But thanks to new owners Kim Forshee and her husband Greg, Gwen's legacy will continue to live on and inspire future generations. And for our next story, we're going to head up to the Sleeping Bear Dunes to take a stroll through the sands with photographer Neil Weaver. This UP native's passion for creating beautiful images has made him one of the most talked about landscape photographers in Michigan. His work can be found in countless publications, plastered on billboards, and perhaps even hanging on a wall in your own home.
Neil Weaver's journey to becoming a photographer began quite simply. On a trip home from college, he borrowed his mom's 35mm camera and went out to snap photos of the lakeshore. He just had fun with it, let his creativity take over, and he instantly caught the bug for photography. Now, 16 years later, Neil is still going strong. This self-taught photographer spends his days traversing the state in hopes of being in the right place at the right time to capture the perfect image.
Neil, thank you for joining us here today. A very hot day here in Sleeping Bear Dunes. Now, sitting here, this may seem like a stupid question, but what makes Michigan so great for landscape photography?
Well, when you look around, the features here are incredible. And this is just one place. And you've got, so many miles of lakeshore. You've got lighthouses, you've got pictured rocks, Porcupine Mountains, even the Keweenaw Peninsula, that area. But just the Lake Superior shore in general is probably my favorite.
When you're kind of deciding on a place that you want to go and photograph, what's kind of the criteria for you to go and photograph an area?
Sure, I think it's, I always look for features. So what kind of features does it have? Does it have something unique? Does it have maybe an outlet along the lake shore where you can shoot of a winding river going out to Lake Superior? Does it have, rocky shoreline with really interesting stones, of different colors? I like that a lot too. A lot of these places have been photographed so many times, and everybody can have their own unique take on it, which is nice. And that's a beautiful thing about photography is we can all go to the same place and we can all have different photos of that, because you've got different points of view, different perspectives, you've got different light. All those things together can create just a, infinite amount of photos of really the same area.
To get the perfect shot, sometimes you have to get off the beaten path a little bit. What's kind of the hairiest situation that you've ever put yourself in to capture the perfect photograph?
I'd say when we were in Grand Island, you saw these massive chunks of ice laying there, and at one point they had fallen, and luckily we weren't there when they did, and some of these were probably several thousand pounds. Just hearing the cracks in the ice and things like that when you were over there, that was kind of nerve-wracking at first, and after a while, it's strange to say, but you got a little bit used to it, and I think we were so in awe of everything around us that we, you kind of let your guard down a little bit and maybe forget about that danger a little bit too.
So I went on your website and downloaded some of my favorite images of yours. I wonder if you could just kind of go through them and
Sure.
You can just kind of tell about where they were.
That's actually a little bit west of Munising, up in the Upper Peninsula. I knew there was a cave there, I'd seen photos of it, but I didn't know exactly where. This past summer, last June, I planned to shoot here, and I wanted to get it to where the sun peeked through the left side of that opening. The reason for that is because I wanted to get that sun to light up the top of the cave, the roof of the cave. You know, there was some nice texture in there and it was kind of mossy, and I just thought, man, the shadows and the light in there would just look magnificent.
In landscape photographers, this is probably as close as you get to an action shot, I suppose. Where was this at?
That's Grand Haven, and the Grand Haven Lighthouse there, that pier is a fun place to go when the waves are big, obviously. When the wind's coming out of the straight west, you get some waves that just hit that outer lighthouse head on. And when they do that, they just they explode off of the end of that pier.
Is that another example of persistence, waiting for that right moment for the waves to hit?
You know, we take a lot of shots out there as photographers. You might take, you know, hundreds of photos in a very short time, trying to get that right moment. And you might go out there, shoot many shots, and you might come back with a couple of keepers that you actually like. Eagle Harbor, and that's one of my favorite lighthouses right there. And it's probably more of my favorite now since I took that photo. With this photo, I took many of them, and the neat thing about it is everyone's different. Every shot is different. The lights were moving. They were like dancing in the sky. So every shot I have, which I took over and over and over again, they all look different, which is kind of neat because you can kind of go through and pick what you really like the most.
And on the sentimental side, what does it mean to you? Someone contacts you through your website, sees one of your photos, likes it well enough to say, hey, I want to look at that in my home every day.
I think it's really neat. I'm actually amazed that people want my photos in their homes. First of all, it's quite an honor actually to have that. People are really, I think in Michigan, have a kind of a sense of pride in our state. A lot of us have memories of going north on vacations and going to these places, maybe as a child or even now with their own kids. They like to relive those memories and see places that they might recognize too.
Let's say for a youngster watching who maybe just got his first camera, has the bug to go out and shoot landscapes, what kind of advice would you give?
Just enjoy it and try to learn as much as you can, and look at other photographs and other people's photographs. Why do you like them? What in those photographs makes you like them? You know, notice the things that work in that photograph, and by doing that, you can kind of figure out what you need to do to improve your photography.
If you want to find out more about Neil and view all of his beautiful photographs, you can visit his website, neilweaverphotography.com. And for our final story, Bob Garner is heading up to the Straits of Mackinaw to have a sit down with his old friend John Madigan. John Madigan is well known to those who have had unforgettable experiences on his boat tours along Pictured Rocks in Lake Huron. Well, John has added a new vessel to his fleet, and he's giving folks here in northern Michigan a little taste of the Caribbean.
Here I am, up at the tip of the mitt. We're right in Mackinaw City. It's a place you need to be if you want to go on an adventure on a pirate ship. And that's what I said, a pirate ship, as in arg and shiver me timbers. Old friend of public broadcasting, John Madigan and his partners brought this boat and concept up from the salt waters of the Caribbean to our freshwater. How in the world did you figure out you should bring a pirate ship up to all this fresh water?
Well, it's by luck more than anything. We built the pirate ship for Florida, and we decided to bring it to the Great Lakes, maybe make an adventure for kids that would be enjoyable here locally.
You know, you can see this thing coming. It looks like a pirate ship from start to finish. So how many kids can you put on there? And John, that includes adults, because even when an adult gets on board here, they turn into a kid.
About 75, 80 people would be the max, Bob. It's rated for 115, but that's just too crowded for the operation we're running. This tour here obviously went on this morning. A little education with the bridge and the lakes, and a lot of fun, a little education, a little laughing, a lot of everything.
Okay, John, when the kids go out, right away they get a little bit of a safety talk, but then turns right to pirates.
Yeah, I think the kids, as soon as they see the boat, their imagination starts running.
Yeah.
They see the boat from a distance and they go up and they say, is this a real pirate ship? I can see it in their mind. Of course, they get on and they get greeted by people that are dressed up like pirates, that are talking in, I don't know if pirate language is the right term, and then of course
yes.
And then we get underway, and then the first thing is they raise up the Jolly Roger.
We've got to let everybody know that there are pirates on this ship. So, who wants to help raise the pirate flag, mateys? Get your hands on that line, loves. All right, everybody got their hands on the line. Raise that flag, mateys. Let everybody know that we have pirates on board, loves.
And then the water cannons.
Water cannons, they get to shoot the water cannons and get a little bit of wet.
Man your cannons, mate. Everybody grab a cannon. Push those buttons. Squirt those sea monsters. Bob, I'll show you. Right over here, push the button. There you go.
And swab the deck, have the pirate music going around, do a little bit of dancing.
All pirates dance. Good job, mate.
Go under the bridge, get a little history about the bridge and the area and the Great Lakes in the wonderful state of Michigan. And then we go over and look at the fort, and then we prepare and shoot off a cannon on the fort.
All hands on ears. In 3, 2, 1.
But aye, there's a treasure chest.
And we turn around and we grapple the treasure chest, and everybody pulls it on board, and they sit around and tell a story about the treasure chest and open it up, and everybody gets some trinkets and some treasures, and we do a sword fight, and they dance around the deck and talk pirate and talk to the people up on the crew, and we come back to the boat. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long.
Perfect, perfect, John.
Well, that's going to wrap things up for us on this episode of Destination Michigan, and from all of us here. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.